explain to you some question in activity 2N, which is on page 105. So we will look at the isomer for alcohol, which is the pentanol. So here we have the questions. Write the molecular formula of an alcohol with 5 carbon atoms. So the alcohol with 5 carbon atoms is actually the pentanol. So after that, we need to draw and name all the possible isomer of the molecular formula in the question 1. So the molecular formula of alcohol, so before that, let's recall the general formula of alcohol is CnH2n plus 1 OH, whereby the functional group is the hydroxyl group or H group. So if we have 5 carbons, so N is equal to 5. So the formula of pentanol will be C5H and then 2 multiplied by 5 plus with 1 OH. So the molecular formula of pentanol is actually C5H11 OH. So pentanol have a lot of isomers. So as you can see, pentanol have a total of 8 isomers. So we will look at it one by one. So first of all, for pentanol, we have 5 carbons. So here for the first isomer, the longest carbon chain is 5. So this is the longest carbon chain with 5 carbon. And also we have the functional group, which is the hydroxyl group. So in this case, the hydroxyl group is bonded with the first carbon. This is carbon 1, carbon 2, carbon 3, carbon 4, and carbon 5. So the longest chain is 5 carbon, and then the hydroxyl group is on the first carbon. So we name it as pentane 1 oil. Of course, we can switch the position of the hydroxyl group, which is to the next carbon. So for the second case, we move the hydroxyl group to the second carbon. So now the hydroxyl group is on the second carbon. So in this case, we name it as pentane 2 oil. So again, as you can see, the longest carbon chain is still 5. So another case is we can move the hydroxyl group to the third carbon. So this is our first carbon, second carbon, this is the third carbon, this is the fourth, and this is the carbon number 5. So here the hydroxyl group is called carbon number 3. So we name it pentane 3 oil. So these three are the more simplest one, whereby we only switch a position of the hydroxyl group. So again, for the third structure formula, the longest carbon chain is 5 carbon. So moving on to the next slide. So here we have another 3 more, 4 more, and then now the longest carbon chain become 4 carbons. So we have 4 carbon as the longest carbon chain, and as you can see, there will be a branch. So in this case, we have the methyl group. So now we need to assign the carbon numbering. So of course, when we want to assign the carbon numbering, we want to make sure the carbon that is bonded with the hydroxyl group to have the smallest carbon number. So in this case, we need to number the carbon atom for the left-hand side. So this is carbon number 1, this is carbon number 2, this is carbon number 3, and this is carbon number 4. So the hydroxyl group is on the first carbon, and then the methyl group is on the carbon number 2. So in this case, we name it 2-methyl. And then the longest carbon chain is 4 carbons, so we call it butane 1 oil. So moving on, actually we can switch the position of the hydroxyl group. In this case, again, we can switch the positions of the hydroxyl group. So here we have the longest carbon chain is 4 carbon, and also we have a methyl group here. This is a methyl group, but now the hydroxyl group is on the second carbon. So now we name it as 2-methyl butane 2 oil. So next, we can also switch the position of the branch, which is the methyl group. So in this case, as you can see, the hydroxyl group, if we compare these two, the hydroxyl group remains, but the methyl group is moved to the next carbon. So in this case, the longest carbon chain is this one. We have 4 carbon. And also, when we number the carbon atom, we want to make sure the carbon that is bonded to the hydroxyl group to have the smallest number. So here we number it from the left hand side. So this is carbon number 1, this is carbon number 2, this is carbon number 3, and this is carbon number 4. So now the methyl group is on carbon number 3, so we name it 3-methyl butane, because the longest carbon chain is 4 carbons, butane 1 oil. And for the second case, if we compare these two, again we can switch the positions of the branch to the next carbon. So here again, the longest carbon chain, here we have 4 carbon. And then this is carbon 1, carbon 2, carbon 3, and carbon 4. So the methyl group is on carbon number 3, and then we have the hydroxyl group on carbon number 2. So in this case, we name it as 3-methyl butane 2-oit. So last but not least, we have the last isomer, which is this. So here now we have a longest carbon chain is the 3 carbon, and then as you can see, we have 2 methyl group on the same carbon. So here this is my carbon number 1, carbon number 2, carbon number 3. So we have 2 methyl group on carbon number 2. So we name it as 2,2-dimethyl. Di here means there will be 2 methyl group on carbon number 2. 2,2-dimethyl propane 1-oit. So here the hydroxyl group is on the first carbon, that's why we know it as propane 1-oit. So these are all the isomers of pentanol. So basically the molecular formula of pentanol is C5H11OH. So all the isomers, they have the same molecular formula, but they have the different structure formula. So that's all for the isomer of pentanol. Thank you.